And hello, welcome everybody. And it's been certainly one hell of a day indeed. I've just decided to do a late chat, a live chat today and this evening chat. The reason being, obviously, we all woke up this morning. Everyone here in Australia woke up this morning to find out that Facebook has banned all media content, such as local and international media, to all its Australian subscribers. Now, what has this ban obviously has caused a huge upset amongst a lot of people. This is also in relation to federal government legislation outlining forcing the social media platforms and such as Facebook, but also Google, to pay mainstream media organisations such as the Murdoch Empire a certain fee for using some advertisement. As someone actually correctly pointed out, look, the legislation works like this. Say if you had a billboard in your front yard and you allow people to put ads on it for free so they can continue business. But one day someone comes along and says, no, I want you to pay for having my ad on that billboard. That's practically what's happening here is how it works. But what's happening further as well is that major stream media such as Murdoch is looking to try and push and further monopolise his position even further and looking to expand his market and obviously increase his profit because he's a capitalist. That's what they do. If they're not trying to increase their profit, they're obviously pushed out altogether. So this is what we're seeing here. But the problem we also had, it's not a matter of more than just Facebook and Google paying for having their links on their search engines and on their pages. What it comes down to, Murdoch has access to a lot of our personal information as well, and that in order to expand his market further. What the repercussions this has, though, is ordinary working people. On ordinary working people, I mean. What are the repercussions? Well, obviously, unions, community groups, and other non-profit organisations, emergency services, farmers, small business people use Facebook a lot for both their marketing, but also to sharing news links, be it from a radio interview or a television interview. And that way, it can reach such a wider audience, and that way they manage to expand their reach further. And obviously, people use it too, find out what's the latest. The Bureau of Meteorology, which was one of the very many victims of this whole Facebook ban. If you wanted to find out the latest weather warning, for example, or even the CFA, Country Fire Association, they may have a bushfire warning, and especially if you live in a remote community or regional community that can be affected very badly by bushfires, you need to have immediate information. Well, obviously, Facebook was one of those places you can pick that up as well and get that information. This is all because in relation to the effects that Mark Zuckerberg, and quite correctly, Facebook overall made the decision, stop that, we're not paying any more for it, and this is the action they have to take. And why would they want to do this to Australia as well? We're only a small market to them. Population of 25 million, and how many out of that 25 million are on Facebook? So they're looking to even pay some sacrifice. They know they'll lose some subscribers as such, but hey, the population of California is 40 million people. There's a lot more Facebook subscribers in the state of California than there are in Australia. So in a lot of ways, we're just being used as the guinea pig in all this. Complete shenanigans that's been happening on. But the challenge I actually want to put on here, what's exactly going on? And I think we've got to have a look at it. This is a fight between two factions of the ruling class, not two, but there's two of them. There's Silicon Valley one side, the mainstream media on the other, and it's been led by Murdoch. Now, Murdoch in this country has a stranglehold on the media, owns over 70% of the media in this country. They actually pretty much dictate government policy. They pretty much loves to dictate who actually forms government, and the amount of times they interfere in elections and try and swing the public opinion towards a particular candidate or a particular party is phenomenal. It's got a history of it, and both major parties are complicit in this as well, allowing this to get to this point for over years. So I'm not saying one party was bad and one party is good, and I also understand too, talking about just on that particular point. There's no good guy, bad guy fight about this. These are factions within within the capitalist class that are fighting each other. And what we're seeing is trying to, obviously Murdoch, but other mainstream media is further taking a grip and want to expand their market as well, but in their detriment to our own well-being. And once again, who gets affected, adversely affected? Ordinary working people, or remote communities, regional communities. Anyone might have a small business, self-employed, whatever they do, they tend to rely on this, and these are the real victims of this whole shambles. Now, obviously, information as well. That's what we're also seeing here is a further monopolisation of our information, but also a way of censoring dissent. A lot of left groups have now been booted off social media. Now they've been shut down. This is all in the wake of what happened at Capitol Hill with Trump. And for those who believed in censoring not just Trump, but a lot of his supporters, well, now for those, it's perfectly come back to bite them. And this is what we're concerned about. So this allows the ability, not just the government, but the powers that be, to actually censor any dissenting voice even further. And there's a lot of dissenting voices on Facebook. And I've just been reading up a lot of posters, a lot of left-wing parties that have had their media outlets or news items basically censored or completely wiped off Facebook altogether. This is actually a very, very big concerning point. I think one thing we ought to do is not to actually side with one or the other. I have got absolutely no time for Murdoch. I think Murdoch's disgusting, as disgrace. I hate his media. It's actually not even, I don't regard it as journalism. It's just gutter trash. I refuse to buy any of his papers. I don't subscribe to Sky News or Fox News. Refuse to do that. It's just basically garbage. And it's anti-working class as well. On the other hand, too, I'm not going to be actually supporting Facebook's actions for what they did either. And as I said, this is actually basically the people who are actually affected from this is not Murdoch. It's not the mainstream media. And once again, it's ordinary working people here in Australia. And this just shows a blatant censorship by the powers that be to allow us any form of news information, both nationally, locally, or internationally as well. We have to actually obviously have to try and go to the source even more. And I think one thing we do need to do is look at our strategy and then develop our tactics and work out our backup plans as well. I've opened up other social media accounts with other pages. I'm with VK, which is like the Russian equivalent to Facebook. It wasn't so long ago I started up there, but I've also got a Signal and Telegram account as well. And that was because basically one day they might ban me from social media. Twitter at the moment is still continuing. But look, let's not just rely on Twitter to pull us through this. This is obviously now a cause of concern and how we can source our news even further. We would have to go straight to the news sources ourselves. And obviously, that's going to be a no-brainer there. But I think that the banning of all particular opposition there towards be a federal government policy to any actions by the ruling class, but a foreign policy and that. This is a big concern about censorship. For many years now, we've been using Facebook. So unions have been using Facebook, especially to get their information out, but to use it as organising as well. This actually puts a break on that. When the ACTU, the Australian Council of Trade Unions, today announced that they actually had their media banned as well from Facebook. And that's right. And a lot of unions are going to be facing that as well. So anything, it's not just having one particular group that's being banned here, it's basically everyone. And as I said, once again, emergency services and other critical information services that we may require have now been banned from there. It has been announced that Zuckerberg's reviewing it now, and obviously a few things that shouldn't have been banned. But, well, I think it's a bit late for that. The damage is done. I think the implications on us even further is how we communicate and how we need to get organised. I just mentioned that we need some backup plans and how we're going to circumvent a lot of this. There has been a proposal by a federal member of Parliament, Bob Katter. I'm not going to get into about him at the moment, but he has put forward maybe we should have our own publicly owned social media page. Look, there's a lot of merit to that. There's obviously requires a lot of discussions and brainstorming around it. I don't object to it, but just remember we live under a capitalist system, and in the end of the day, if we've got dissenting voices towards the capitalist system, I'm sure they will be censored as well, one way or the other. So this is what we ought to be looking at, even deep further out of all this, is the private profit motive. Right? Someone asked me today, why did Facebook do this? How can they do this? Because it's private property. It is, Zuckerberg owns it. He doesn't need a government directive to shut anything down. Doesn't have to. Look what happened with Trump and his supporters after the Capitol Hill riots. Look what's happened to everyone else. That wasn't directed on an order by the major parties in the US or by a government office there. They did it perfectly on themselves. They actually have the absolute control of the information because they own it. They own it outright. Now, for those of you who are new to this audience or just general ordinary people that might not be politically as aware we would be, I would say this: what we mean by private property. We don't mean your own personal house, your car, clothes on your body, whatever else you might own. That's personal property. That's your personal items. What we're talking about, private property, is the ownership of the means of production, aka be it the media, be it a factory, be it a construction company, be it any other major industry you could think of. That's what we mean, and who owns it outright, and who's dictating whom here. Once again, as I just said, Murdoch's dictating the whole terms of legislation to the federal government, which is, I believe, has been passed through the lower house or the House of Representatives, and obviously it's still got to go to the Senate yet. The other thing, once again, who controls the information? Well, Zuckerberg owns Facebook. Let's face it, Facebook's his. He owns it. That's right. Where everything we post up there, even it might be a family photo, Facebook owns it. He owns it now. Even if you delete that post, they've still got a copy of that post somewhere. They own it. All our personal information we've put up there, where we live, where we've been on a holiday, for example, what we've eaten for dinner, that's all theirs now. That's all theirs. And I think we need to start putting the private profit motive under questioning now, under the spotlight, even more so. And if this cannot wake people up, I don't know what will. What are we going to do? Wait for fascism, which is a force of brute dictatorship, which is a movement of brutality and violence? Is that what we have to wait until we realise that capitalism really sucks and it needs to be and it really needs to be removed and replaced with socialism? Or we're going to start waking up now and start getting ourselves organised? Because that's going to be the question for us. We do need to mobilise. If we need to have some changes here, we do need to mobilise and get ourselves seriously organised. Avoid these petty arguments that I've seen over interesting enough, on social media for many years, but amongst each other. We've all got a common foe. We know what that is, and I've just mentioned it is the capitalist class, internationally now. And we live under a system, not just a capitalist, but at its highest stage, imperialism. Now, imperialism is not a government policy. It's not someone's idea that comes out of someone's head. Well, it's not written in some storybook. It's real. It's a system of capitalism at its highest stage. And we're seeing, part of that, we're seeing further and further and further monopolisation. Murdoch and his media empire. Facebook, Silicon Valley, the rest of it. Defence is another one. All sorts of industries are becoming further and further and further monopolised here every day. And that's what it does. That's the system we live under. It's a mixture of finance capital taking over industrial capital. It's also monopoly. It's also decadent. There's many other things as well, but it's also oppressive. It requires the rest of the world to be poor while wealth gets concentrated in fewer and fewer hands. And that's what we're seeing here in Australia, and Australia is no exception to that rule. So this is what we're up against here in this country. And look, for those around the world that do watch this, here's a warning. If this can happen here, it's going to happen to you. Doesn't matter if you could be in New Zealand, you could be in Canada, United States, UK, Ireland, Europe, Africa, Latin America, wherever it is, Asia. This is what can happen to you as well. So don't be all surprised, learn from it. But most importantly now, we need to have some sort of organisation and mobilisation and start becoming a force to be reckoned with, to actually remove the system of capitalism and build socialism. A system where the factories, the banks, major industries can become under public ownership for the public good, where the private profit motive no longer dictates to us anymore, and we can have control of our own destination. We can put proper rational economic planning forward, not economic rationalism as we heard during the 1990s. In that sense, the neoliberal version. I mean, a properly planned economy where everyone benefits, where we can eliminate poverty, deal with climate change, and stay the hell out and keep out there and end imperialist wars as well, and have win-win cooperation with other countries and live peacefully with each other. Otherwise, we are on that part of the road to barbarism if we do not do something about it. That's the choice that's coming to us now. I have got afraid of admitting it. People may want to argue with me about it. It's fine. You can have a difference of opinion if you like. But that's just a reality I'm pointing out to it. So we're obviously here in Australia. We've got a major, very, very big task ahead of us. I'm going to call all those, not just the comrades, but everybody. We do need to start getting together now and start doing some things, even little practical things first. People go, well, what can we do? Or we can start educating each other about it, and we can start agitating and even get organisation. And maybe we should campaign for a public social media forum. That's a thought. I know in a previous interview as well, a previous video, I see Kevin Rudd, our former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, came up with a petition about challenging Murdoch. Yes, it might be a parliamentary petition, but sign it. Over 500,000 people did. It just shows you if a lot more people, there is a lot of opposition to this. Subconsciously, then a lot of people not realising that they're opposing to is imperialism. I think we're on the right mark here if we actually start doing things ourselves. Little things, big things grow. There's that song, I forget the musician who came up with that song, but I mean, look, we do have to look at this, and we have to have some serious discussions about this and moving forward. And I think, but at the same time, we have to put our differences to the side and realise we've got a problem here, and we do need to do something about it, because otherwise, while we're still going to have climate change, while we're still going to have poverty, high unemployment, job insecurity, more mortgage foreclosures. Well, if we want to continue down that path, we're certainly going right forward as well. Thank you, Alia. Yeah, Paul Kelly wrote that song. There you go. So we have got a lot of work to do, and that as well. So for those of us, all of us that woke up this morning, realised we couldn't see something from the ABC or Channel 9 or even some alternative media source on Facebook. Look, this is only a start. This is only the beginning. This ain't going to be over yet. And obviously what's been put through to federal parliament is obviously without any regard to the welfare of common, ordinary people here in this country. In fact, we also understand what Parliament's there for, is to uphold and maintain profit, the rule of profit. Every policy that's put through, every decision's made, is to ensure the expansion of profit, to maintain it and expand it. And that's what we're seeing here. We do need to actually start fighting for that and start campaigning as well. We're up for a federal election year too, possibly late this year. A federal election will be called after September this year. And here's another thing. The Liberal National Party are obviously big supporters of the Murdoch Empire. They fall in that camp or that faction of it. The Labor Party, well, let's see what they're going to do about that as well. But they're all both capitalist parties. They will maintain the rule of capitalism. I don't think actually even Anthony Albanese, who's the federal opposition minister, will be completely going full on against Murdoch either. They're up against a federal election probably late this year or definitely early next year. What more could you ask for than do a favour for Murdoch? And obviously he'll give you the golden nod and the thumbs up, and you would obviously guaranteed for another 3 years in Parliament. So that's obviously having a look at that play. And just once again, like I'm trying not to sound like a scratch record, but the fact is, he plays a very powerful role. But it's up to us now to try and start doing something about this. And look, I will say this too. I mean, I know Parliament's regarded by some groups out there regarded as a dead end, but we still need to run candidates. I think good working class people, good union candidates, good community candidates up there, running that as a voice of the people, voice of ordinary working people. up there. And we do need it. We may not get anywhere with it. Who knows? But we've got to ensure we get the message up there. Because really, one of the big demands we should be having is not a government that fights for capitalist interests. We want a government that fights for working families, for ordinary working people. And that's what we should be looking to at least try and campaign around as well and put that pressure on. I haven't got more further discussion about that on Saturday. I will be doing another live over the weekend with Dus James on Working Class Revolt, and obviously a lot more discussion about this. But I thought, look, tonight I had to say something about this because I've seen all the posts today on and off, and I think something's got to be talked about here and get the discussion going. And I think, well, look, let's keep it going. And more than just discuss, let's put these discussions into actions and what practical other activities we can do. I'll leave it at that for now. So thank you once again. Please press the like button. Please share this far and wide. Let other people know. Obviously, it'll be interesting to see how far and wide this goes with Facebook, but obviously they haven't banned the YouTube side of things yet. Don't be surprised that happens either. But please share this far and wide. Like it, hit the subscribe button, and look, I look forward to seeing you at the next show. And I always round it off at Dare to Struggle, Dare to Win, but I also like to round it off Workers of All Countries Unite. Thank you.